Good morning. Okay, you're there. I come from the time before Google. Didn't exist when I started. I was in college and I started college in 1994, and believe it or not, the internet was not exactly as sophisticated as it is today, to say the least. Just by way of background, my family is actually from Colombia, which has obviously been subject to more than 40 years of war, and from the Dominican Republic. They migrated here in the 1970s, and as a result, I think of their immigration experience and their political experience, I naturally, just through day-to-day life, became politicized. Having to interact with the general public on behalf of a parent who felt uncomfortable with her accent, or who would be judged on a daily basis because of the way she spoke or the way she looked, made me every day increasingly aware about the differences in our society and how people were treated. And in college, I chose to sort of focus my activism on the things not that divided us, but the things that brought us together. And in the 1990s in Washington, D.C., financial aid and economic rights was a huge issue. And it was sort of at the height of what I would call trade union activism. And that's where I began my activism, is really with working with trade unionists from all around the world, immigrant workers here in the United States who didn't have a voice, and who needed support and solidarity from others who could stand with them in order to make a change. And so when Ami references the need to have social media and social activism online, we very much today in 2012 still need on the ground activism. We very much need today to still have sort of individuals who are willing to take a stand. And you saw that really recently, I think, in the environmental movement when, for the tar sands issue, and I don't know who was in Washington when they did the sort of mass mobilization of 10,000 people on tar sands. I mean, that was one of just the most impressive things that I've seen to date. And it demonstrates that, online activism is the gateway, but it's a way for us to connect. And that's really what we've done at Amnesty International. And that's really why I transitioned my career from economic rights to a broader platform on human rights. And how many of you are familiar with the case or the story of Troy Anthony Davis? Awesome. So that means that some of the things that we did, within social media really worked. For those that don't know, Troy Davis was on death row for many, many years, since the age of 18. He was on death row basically because he was accused of murdering a police officer in Savannah, Georgia. And over time, his case began to erode in the courts when 7 of the 9 witnesses recanted their testimony, and one of the witnesses was potentially the actual individual who murdered the police officer. Ultimately, Troy Davis was executed by the state of Georgia just in September of 2011. However, during that period, we were able to do just an amazing amount of work collectively with both online social agencies as well as community organizations that have a history in the African American community, like the NAACP, to really take the case of Troy Anthony Davis and elevate it so that people could understand why the death penalty was so inherently unjust, right? And so my message to you today is really to think about sort of the full picture of social justice activism. Think about not only the entry points, but all the things that are needed to get people to really get inspired by the work, to make sure that they hear your message. And even in a moment where we still lost, right? We lost Troy Davis because he was ultimately executed. We were able to educate and elevate the minds of hundreds of thousands of people in the United States on an issue that seemed like it was dead, right? And around the world. And so that's my message to you today, is don't give up. Even if an issue seems difficult, seems obscure, if you're passionate about it, you will make a change ultimately.